Okay, hello. My name is Jorgen. I'm also from Estonia, but I'm from Tartu, which is not Tallinn and not Pärnu. It's another town. Google it. Come to our gym. Kadi, wave your hand. She's currently one of the head honchos at the gym, so. You're so funny, Mark. That's Mark, and there's an achievement to Mother's Milk Mark Lawrence, right? Yes. So don't forget that.
Mother's Milk.
Yes. So it's going to be a wrestling class. I was kind of surprised that it got upvoted again. Like our wrestling classes, I kind of have the idea that people don't really know what they're signing up for, but we'll see. To kind of get the feel of the crowd. How many of you have ever competed in wrestling or judo? Raise your hands. One, okay, couple. So, and some here. How many of you have had at least like a half-year period, let's say at least a half-year period, where you trained wrestling at least once or more per week? Okay, that's kind of nice. So. And how many of you plan to train wrestling at least approximately once per week from now on? Because it's kind of like, I mean, obviously you can participate and watch, but it's not going to stick if you don't practice these things. So it makes sense for wrestling, or if you kind of like at least start standing in mats. This is the third class of my offensive wrestling program. 2 are already up in Globetrotters Academy. First one is all takedowns you ever need to know, which is about wrestling from the legs. The second one is simple upper body wrestling, which is kind of the Greco basics. And this is the third one. I'm not going to teach defense at camps, like wrestling defense, because that would require that people have at least similar base level of offense, which is never going to be the case. But you can't teach like offense from zero. So if you have never really wrestled, this class is still fine. But go and watch the other 2 classes as well, because those 3 kind of work together. Okay? And for the very start, with a dedication to this one person who on one of my YouTube videos said that 5 minutes in and not a single technique was shown, I'm out. To that person, I'm going to dedicate this one technique that we're going to do as warm-up. I mean, obviously, people like that can go to TikTok and watch 100 arm bars in 60 seconds if they want to. Fair game. But we're going to do one technique. Kadi, can I use you for an uke? So, you probably know necktie. Grab the neck on this side. This is like one of the main ties that happens in jiu-jitsu and also in wrestling. And there is a good, you have this, we're not going to do the Greco kind of classic, freeing the neck from here, which looks like this, that you grab, and they kind of break it and try to enter the 2-on-1, which I showed in Iceland, and that's also already recorded. But there is one thing which should have been on the Iceland class as well. And this happens when we're more like freestyle, and also jiu-jitsu people can't keep a straight back, so we're used to being hunched over, and people grapple like that. Okay? And when somebody is that, you don't get a 2-on-1 from here because it's too far. So what we're going to do is that we take the over-under classic necktie, kind of like a tie clinch, and you hang out here. This is not a drill, so take turns. One goes and the other goes. So we kind of move around each other a little bit. And if I'm the one who needs to do the technique, I'm doing the moving. And what I want to do now is that essentially I want to kind of shoulder hit the arm. And this is called a slide by in kind of wrestling circles, I think. So what I do is that I pull here and I rotate my body like this, okay? And I end up here in this position. Don't follow from here. You can obviously take the body lock, but then let go and then it's her turn. So it's like we go here, she moves me about, and she kind of tries to pull the leg and just kind of like slide by my arm. Do that as a warm-up. Grab somebody, wait a second. Ask your partner what kind of wrestling experience they have. So you just know that, can you take break falls? If both people can take break falls, that's better. If both have wrestled, you can go harder. If neither of you has wrestled, go light. Okay? Pair up and go. The point is to actually throw it like, yeah. Okay? Yeah, I do pull, but if I grab the neck again, I do pull from here, but I need to my upper body.
So you go to him instead of pulling him.
Yeah. Did you catch that? We're not going to do it as a drill, but for everything else, you can start with that if you want to. So you get your reps, and this is fine. So, but I'm going to show that once more, and then do a little bit of intro to this specific actual class, and then we'll move ahead. So, yeah. So the point is here. Let me try to move so most people see me. Okay. So while I might be pulling here, what is really important is that I go to them. If I don't think about this as kind of like clearing the arm, like with my arm. That's not the point. So if the arm is like extended like that, I'm thinking about kind of like putting my collarbone under her triceps. So because if I think like this, it might remove it, but the distance is still it's still in frame. So what I'll do is that I might kind of yank here a little, but essentially I'm trying to get my shoulder kind of here, right? And then going to them, okay? So I should kind of end up in this position where I can immediately either take the shoulder grip or hip grip is the most common, and I can actually take them down from this position quite well. Or take the body lock, or take the back, or whatever, right? So everything else that we do, you can kind of put this in. You can do this as the initial setup, okay? And you can, any other wrestling stuff, I am gonna hang around probably till open mat and some open mat, so you can ask me then, or the end of the class. Now, regarding the end of the class, it is 16:10, and I've been promised that if I can get this class done in under 40 minutes, I'm gonna get some chocolate. Because talking too much is one of my problems. So I'm trying to kind of be really brief today. Because I want to, as I said, it's the third class. One is wrestling from the legs, one is wrestling from the upper body, and this is essentially about how to tip people over and how to trip them. That's why tips and trips. So it's like foot sweeps and trips, which is also part of like wrestling. One part missing that I don't ever teach for adults really is throws, because I think throws are a pain to learn if you're an adult who's wrestling or doing judo like once, twice per week. To get really good at actual throws, like your hip throws and stuff, you need to put in way more time and kind of effort. You might learn them, but this is not the part of our standard beginner curriculum. Okay, so let's think about what essentially sweeps and trips are. So if I want to tip somebody over, essentially like tip or trip somebody over, then there's basically two ways to do it. So what is classically called a trip of any kind means that the weight is on the leg, so the leg is stuck in the mat, okay? And it is somehow blocked, that they can't really move the leg, and their center of gravity is brought over that point, okay? This is any kind of trip. So, and the first idea to have is that technically and kind of directions-wise, it does not really matter if I write how I did kind of like showed like this, but the direction is exactly the same, for example, regardless of whichever grip I have. And also if my foot is here, or if my foot is here, or even if my foot would be here, okay? Because from here also, the general direction to bring her weight over the stuck point is still kind of the same, okay? Makes sense thus far. Okay, so this is your trips. Leg is heavy, it's stuck on the mat. You need to block it, and you need to have some means to drive them so that you drive them over the blocked point in a way that's hardest to regain balance. So obviously, the leg is blocked. I won't drive there because there is the other leg. Like I mean, it might happen, but it's harder. There is the other leg, right? So if this leg is blocked, the general direction of drive is kind of like this sector, okay? I always say it's kind of towards the blocked leg's butt cheek, so kind of towards that direction. Make sense thus far? Okay. So now the YouTube guy who doesn't like talking, like they can check out, that's fine. The sweep motion happens when the leg is light. So essentially, if we take like the same leg, right now the leg is heavy, and I put the leg here, and now I can trip them over that point. However, when it happens so that their leg is light, then I can sweep the leg, and they will fall kind of more, since its leg is light. Let's say I will sweep it, I need to bring them here. Because in the general back direction, usually there is more support from the standing leg. Okay, this is like the theory. It will make more sense once we actually start doing it. But there is one final point to make before, and the rest is all drilling. How traditionally sweeps and trips are taught is isolated techniques. In judo, for example, you have your sweep with the Japanese name number 1, you have your sweep with the Japanese name number 2, so forth and so on. I tried to memorize all of them, but I'm a little bit anxious, so whatever, ashi, something. And in wrestling, you have inside trips, outside trips, so forth and so on, and your foot sweeps. You do them as isolated techniques usually. A beginner starts to learn like that, okay, this is your sweeping or tripping technique. You dance around with a partner, light leg, boom, you sweep them. Light leg, boom, you sweep them. Okay, and you learn this technique. And then you watch the nice competition highlights, where it's like judo highlights, people are like fighting and then like boom, perfect sweep, guy flies high air, ippon, done, right? But what is not shown is actually how much also in the highest level of judo, it's just two guys walking around and kicking each other in the shins. This doesn't make the cut on the highlight, but it happens a lot, even in the highest levels, if you watch actual judo competition, okay? So this means that essentially somebody starting to learn those is getting a false impression of how they're supposed to work. Because they're learning it like this: if I'm doing everything correctly, sweep works. If I'm doing everything correctly, sweep works. And then they go into sparring and usually they don't catch any sweeps for like 5-10 years, maybe. And this is a fundamental kind of, I think, error in teaching methodology, because you see that they actually also don't work in the highest level. And what I think the problem is that, and this is going to be the core idea of the class, is that if I think in terms of techniques, that I have my this sweep and ashi and sasai and all that, and inside trips, outside trips, me as the one doing the technique, Japanese term is tori, it's not me who decides which kind of technique I'm going to do. Because the difference between like my off balance, I cannot be 100% sure whether they will kind of step like this or whether they will step like this. It's not me who decides it, even if I do the perfect kuzushi, which means off balance. Okay? So ideally, if I want to become better at trips and sweeps, I think as an adult specifically, who have more brains than your 7-year-olds who start judo or wrestling, most of you, I hope, at least, is that I think a better way to learn is that this is all kind of like one continuum, one chaos. All trips, all sweeps. Leg might be weighted, it might not be weighted. Where the weight is can change in the middle of the technique. And I can and should learn this from day one. Okay? This is the point of the class. All the rest is going to be practicing. Does anybody have like an actual question still? It will make more sense to those who are not verbal people but doing people. Because verbal is over, now it's doing. Okay, let's go. So first drill. I'm not saying that this is like the eco, because we are going to have roles. Especially like for the first class, to go full isolated eco, where we both would have an opposing goal, doesn't work in my opinion in context of stand-up grappling. It's too fast, too complicated. Some coaches might disagree, I think like that. So what we'll do is that, at least in the beginning, there will be always like the doer, tori, and the partner, who is essentially like helping me. But the partner, teacher, is like the most important teacher. Like they are way more important than I am walking around and giving you information. Because they need to be sharp, not to get lazy and give me false positives. So they are going to be cooperative, but like not too much, okay? So what I want from them is that, let's say it's my turn. I'm gonna practice for a little. So she's task is to move as realistically on her feet, keeping balance. That's her task. But she should allow me to do the correct things. And the first correct thing that I'm going to aim for is that I'm trying to move her, and she's not going to be like, it's not a standing still competition. She doesn't win by not letting me move her, okay? So I'm just kind of like moving her, okay? I'm moving her, and for the starters, I'm going to watch at her feet, kind of like, okay, feet are going like that. And the only my task is to now try to make her stumble. If it happens that somebody falls, that's kind of fine, but stumble is okay. So what I want to do is that I'm going to try to either sweep, which was light leg, or block, which is the heavy leg, one of her legs, in whichever way I can do with my feet and legs, and then I'm going to try to make her stumble. And I'm deliberately not throwing them. So if it happens that people lose their balance and fall, that's fine, but you're going to get exhausted falling down and getting up all the time. So it's the drill to feel the other's balance. So you're doing this. So don't kick them to the shins too hard, right? I right now, I saw like, I tried to pick the light leg was heavy. Okay, I will try to do, so it was now different, and she fell. One person does at least 2 repetitions, then the roles switch. So you switch roles on your own. I'm not going to yell time, okay? So you switch roles on your own, but both do. So I can also say like, I want to go other side. So let's go other side. Maybe I can take a different grip. Okay, legs are moving. Okay, sorry, I put you down. And I help her up, and I try to get the feel. What is important is that mostly, when you're a beginner, it's going to be that you try to sweep, but the leg is heavy. So you kind of, okay, sweep. So try to immediately do something, for example, like this. Okay. Sorry, I'm giving a bad example, because she doesn't have to fall. Like what has to happen the most is kind of like, and I will let go. Like this is already fine. This is like, I made her stumble. Okay, this is the goal. Feel where the feet are. Try a sweep. If the leg is heavy, try to make it in a trip and push them. If you go for a sweep, or if you go for a trip, and you feel that, leg is light, follow the leg and make it into a sweep. Play with where the weight is. Change yourself. If somebody is kicking you in the shins, tell your partner, please, don't kick me in the shins. Okay? Go, start playing. What needs to occasionally happen is that you need to do a little bit of throwing. So agree with your training partners. If in case the training partner is like, I don't really feel like falling today, I've fallen enough already 2 days, then fine. Like you respect their kind of body, right? So don't throw them. But if the partner is okay, like let's go kind of like light throws, then you need to do those, because otherwise you're not going to get the feel for how much momentum it needs to actually take somebody down. So ideally, I mean, you kind of go with resistance, you go up and then you go back to this drill that you did again, but this will take like a couple of sessions, right? And then finally you can start to integrate it into your actual stand-up sparring. But so one thing, like next drill, if your training partner is okay with it, try to actually put them down, okay? And the key in putting them down in both trips and sweeps is the stickiness. My leg, if I'm sweeping, like these are the foot sweeps and kind of trips with hooks, my body needs to stick there to their body in either way, or in either case. Just kind of like shape of it is going to be a little different. So for example, if I'm doing like a very classic foot sweep like this, trying to foot sweep like this, and let's say the leg is light, and I'm hitting it with the kind of the side of the sole of my foot, this needs to be super sticky. If she tries to move her leg in any way, I need to be like following that. So it shouldn't be like and done, because it's any movement she does, it's not going to stick. So I'm kind of trying to, like, when she tries to move the leg, it should be like kind of sticking by instinct. Think about that. Once you make contact, this needs to stick. This is for sweeps. If it turns into a trip, I kind of want to, and again, like in judo, they differentiate between small and big. It's a continuum. It's not two categories, because it's like, it can be like this, it can be like this, it can be like this. The point is stickiness, because obviously when I do this, it's easier for her to step out as opposed to when I do this. Okay? So the most sticky is kind of your big reaps where you really go close to their hip. So like the inside trip is the classic, like if I do like the small, right? It's kind of easy to step out. That's why specifically in no-gi, you see inside trips usually are like very over-committed. Because like less gi, less friction, so you need to be further in and more sticky, but that doesn't mean that small wouldn't work. It still can work, you can still try. And then essentially, even if you don't get any sweeps or trips in actual sparring, the threat of those that you're going to create is going to make them more vulnerable to other stuff you're doing, either from the upper body or the lower body. Okay? So that's like one of the big, when you're ever wrestled a wrestler, unless they're like a super passive heavyweight, like they are gonna put the pressure on. And when going freestyle, and especially against wrestlers who don't do trips and tips or trips and sweeps that much, the threat of those is a very good way to kind of put pressure on them or match their pressure. I always like to say that you freestyle a Greco guy, you Greco a freestyle guy, and with judo guys, you can just touch their legs these days and they will fall over. But kind of with both, with freestyle and especially Greco guys, is that you can harass them with trips. You might not succeed, but you kind of increase the stuff they need to think about, and this is also important. So think about stickiness, that your foot sticks. Think about hook sticking, and put your opponents down if they're okay with it. If they're not okay with it, try to make them stumble harder, but catch them before they fall. Okay? Go ahead, another round. What some of you are having questions about is that, oh, like, should I go outside only or should I go inside only? Both are fine. Like this is like try to follow your body. That this is another thing in learning wrestling or jiu-jitsu as well. It's like I can give you the ideas, but my tripping and tipping game is never going to be the same as that of like Daniel Bertina, for example, who is like twice as tall as I am, right? Because how far I reach with my leg, that everything is going to be different. Okay? So kind of try to feel what works for you and try to go in with like the empty mind, like they say in judo. Because essentially what I want to say, like these are whether I kind of trip or sweep or something in between, this is like a Schrödinger's takedown. It's like when I go in, I don't know what it's going to be. Okay? I only find out while I'm actually doing it. And this is actually most evident with the turning style. Like when right now, I was deliberately trying to show you like going on the diagonal, like one foot, other foot. But when I do the turns, then it becomes especially evident. Because it's like when I kind of try to turn towards my back, when it's the classic sweep, like that, whoop, okay? And when it's perfect timing, it looks as if I would like, whoom, and the legs fly up and she falls down. But I don't decide that if it succeeds. It only really succeeds if kind of they step in a way that I actually sweep in that moment and their other leg happens to become light too, and then it looks like I'm like a super pro. And this is what you see in judo highlights. But as I said, like even the highest level judo, it's only in highlights. Like in actual matches, there's a lot of like kind of painful looking kicking of shins happening still. Okay? So I don't decide whether the sweep is successful or not. But with kind of turning throws, this was your classic sweep, but actually they will become kind of trips as well. And this is very common in Greco, actually, what they do, where they kind of block with a leg, and this is where you kind of like pummel, right? Like underhooks pummel. You underhooks pummel here, and you do stuff like that, which is kind of a sweep, but at the same time, her other leg is becoming light, and all the weight is here, and my knee is blocking that, and they're falling over that. And so essentially, kind of in judo, you have like, I think, 3 different throws, like the classic sweep, the kind of a little bit turning, and then like really turning over the leg, and then like a Jorgen version of that or whatever. But I think they're not separate techniques. It's a continuum. And I will be the most successful if I kind of accept that kind of the fundamental movement of turning them and either sweeping or blocking their leg. Which of those is a Schrödinger's technique? I don't know yet. And whichever one of those then happens, it happens. And if it doesn't happen, it's an off balance, and I can do something else. And I firmly believe that adults can be taught like this from day one. Okay? So, the new thing that I wanted to add is that now, like I wanted to emphasize that don't think about which leg or inside, outside. Especially if this is new, do stuff that feels comfortable and that feels functional for your body type. That's number 1. And number 2 is that try to add now kind of this hip and like turning stuff. And again, like this can be, whoop, maybe this. Okay, got the sweep. Let's say, put this down. Okay, what should I do? More trippy. Make sense? So you have to get a feel for it, and you have to really fail and play and play and play, and then you become better at it. Okay? So I actually advise, if you're comfortable, grab a new partner, because this needs to be done with as many different people as possible. And it's quite safe compared to wrestling, when you're having somebody smaller or bigger. Okay? So if you're comfortable, grab a new partner. Same thing, but try inside, outside, trips, sweeps. One thing, like this, like inside sweep will very rarely be a takedown. But do it still. It's super uncomfortable when I'm grappling here, let's say, doing this. Like she's gonna be like, what the hell? Like what was that? Okay? And that's another thing for her to think about. It won't result in a takedown in most cases. Sometimes it might, because it can turn into this kind of like, and like as a sweep, it doesn't work. If you put the leg down, I can make it into a trip. But that's like next level, or you will figure these out. So kind of like, to not make it too much shin kicky, think about that you're hitting them with this part. You're not like, okay? It's this part which sticks to the leg as much as possible, and just like harass them with off balances. So that's one thing, and the other thing is practice your turning to your back. Over. Those who already know, actually kind of like doing it as a sacrifice throw is like in the same continuum, but those who have never done anything like that, you can skip it and rewatch the video and introduce it a few weeks later, okay? So, essentially last 3, go! So, very nice kind of increase in intensity. You immediately saw that kind of people are stepping out more. Usually when they start to step out, the answer is more stickiness. And this is like where, especially if you finish in a trip, and especially in no-gi, you need to really kind of go with the trip. So with trips, especially in no-gi, often you go down with them. It's just you end up on top. Like the most kind of useful tip that I found is that usually the correct technique is when you fall really on top of them And this is actually going to be safer also, or the safest for both of your knees, because the accidents with the kind of knees in the trips happen when you kind of hook out far, and there's like two people going with their like, and then somebody falls on somebody's knee, and either one of you gets injured. But if you kind of like go in, and you really see that, okay, my foot was far, but what can I do is I think about, I push them and fall like on them. This is actually the safest for both of you. And you're gonna land on top. And kind of, if you land chest to chest, they might be out of breath a little, but you're not gonna like elbow to them, like there's no danger of getting like elbow to the face or whatever. This is like, watch wrestling videos, how they do it, and then you'll see that. That's not the main thing. So I didn't want you to kind of overexert yourselves. So one thing was kind of like going with a trip really. Same thing with like sacrifice throws. If you want to go down, you really want to kind of be close to them and then like turn over them. And what I really liked is that, which you can do in these drills and should do, is that while you're still cooperating, you will allow for counter trips. Because, ready, come up? Because obviously, if I'm going to kind of like go like this, then actually she can shoot me. That's totally fine. Because it's like, my leg obviously is light, so it is a sweep for her. If she sticks and can exert pressure towards kind of this like 45 butt cheek angle, then she will take me down. And I need to understand, okay, this was because, yes, I was sticking, but my weight was in the wrong place. And then just think about kind of where your weight is. So if I go for the same thing and she tries to sweep me, I can step out and try to do something else, kind of like play with the feet. Or I can just think about that, okay, let's try this for a little, like let's see what happened. So here you can lift my leg. Okay, sorry, put the leg down. What about here? Harder? Yes, okay, now I got this. And then I know that I need to step in deeper, okay? So try to troubleshoot like that. And this is gonna help you more than any kind of like, you are your own most important teacher, I'm saying. So essentially, all gyms can go bankrupt. Let's do this jiu-jitsu anarchy. All right. I will have you do like one more round, like the technique part is over. Does anybody have questions still?
I have one. Like,
yes.
All the time the legs feel so far away.
Aha, okay, perfect. I actually saw this and wanted to say, try to come. So, when you're grappling, when two guard pullers who are afraid of pulling guards are wrestling, then it will look like this. Neither of us wants to pull guard because we're not confident in the past. And then obviously, especially if I'm being shorter, which I am, okay, but it's usually kind of like, when you can do it like, any software engineers around? Yeah, it's like a if then. If legs are too far to sweep, the snap down is, then the snap down is available, okay? And this will also go immediately, like, okay, I can kind of threaten, I see they're too far. I know I'm not gonna get it. So I'm playing here and kind of doing this. Now she will stand up. Okay, and this is how you build your combos. Because it's like obviously like, and also in judo, why the sweeps are so prevalent is because judo rules enforce standing up here. In no-gi grappling, you are going to be here, but then you can exert the threat. You know that if leg too far, then snap down. You get the snap down, very nice. They get afraid of the snap down, they start to grapple more upright, then you can sweep. Make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Anything else? Very good question.
Yeah.
Yes, Jari.
To focus on hand fighting when you have this.
Hand fighting. So, I'm not gonna, like, you can watch the simple upper body wrestling for hand fighting, but I like to say that when you play this game, don't think about hand fighting. Because I can even play this game like, let's say she grabs my wrist and, I'm harassing her. And that's going to be super annoying because she's feeling like, oh, I'm getting good upper body. What the fuck? Sorry. So when I'm kind of trying to learn like that, I try to exercise this from essentially like any position, and even kind of like funny example. Go to my back. Yeah, and you try to take him down, right? And I will fight the handstand. So it's going to be super annoying because they're not expecting that because they feel like, oh, I have a dominant hand position, and you're going to kind of off balance them from there with the legs. Okay? Yes, one more question was no. Okay, then just 2 minutes of same thing, play with all the ideas, be on same level of how hard you want to go. If you want to still one person is doing the technique, but kind of how strict I'm going to be of a teacher. That's kind of where you regulate right now. So do this for another 2 minutes, and then we're done. Okay? And then we do a group picture. Go. No, yeah.